On November 26, 2025, the world awoke to headlines that defied belief. Beijing and Taipei announce a historic alliance. News tickers blazed across New York, London, and Tokyo. China and Taiwan joined forces. The leaders stood side by side, unveiling the Cross-Strait Cooperation Framework. This was no annexation, but a partnership of equals, promising a new era of shared prosperity. The alliance sent shockwaves through governments and markets worldwide. The unthinkable had become reality, and nothing would be the same. The secrecy behind the alliance was as shocking as the alliance itself. In an age of leaks and surveillance, months of high-level talks went undetected. Officials met in undisclosed locations, using secure channels built for this purpose. Both sides knew a single leak could kill the deal. The announcement was timed for maximum impact, just before the US Thanksgiving holiday, when Western governments were distracted. By the time Washington and its allies reacted, the narrative was set. China and Taiwan were partners, not adversaries. The world's intelligence agencies, CIA, MI6, Japan's cabinet intelligence, were blindsided. Billions spent on monitoring the strait, yet they missed the biggest story of the decade. The failure exposed the limits of traditional intelligence in the digital age. Diplomacy had moved into the shadows, and both sides had mastered counterintelligence. The surprise forced emergency meetings in capitals worldwide. Military and economic strategists scrambled to assess the new landscape. For decades, the world was split support Beijing's One China policy, or Taiwan's autonomy. Now, that framework was obsolete. The two main parties had found their own solution, leaving the rest of the world as spectators. The alliance forced a global recalibration. Old alliances and assumptions no longer applied. The world was left to figure out its place in this new order. The shock was total. The implications, profound. The era of predictable geopolitics was over. A new, uncertain chapter had begun. The Cross-Strait Cooperation Framework rested on four pillars. First, economic integration, a single market, no trade barriers, free movement of goods and capital, an economic powerhouse combining China's scale with Taiwan's tech. Second, technology and innovation, joint R&D, shared intellectual property, and coordinated investment in AI, quantum computing and biotech, aimed at ending reliance on Western tech. Third, political cooperation, a permanent council for dialogue, gradual military drawdown, and a promise to resolve disputes peacefully. Fourth, cultural and educational exchange, joint programs, student exchanges, and shared media to foster a common identity. The alliance aimed for more than just economic or political unity. It sought to bridge a 75-year cultural divide. True unity, leaders said, required a deeper connection between people. The framework was ambitious, promising prosperity, innovation, and peace. But the cultural pillar was the most challenging, and the most essential for lasting success. The world watched as two former adversaries tried to become partners. The stakes were enormous, the outcome uncertain. The alliance was a blueprint for a new kind of superpower. Its success or failure would shape the future of Asia and the world. The announcement sent global markets into chaos. Stock exchanges from New York to Tokyo swung wildly as investors scrambled to react. Defense stocks in the US and Japan plunged. Their biggest market driver, cross-strait tension, had vanished. Meanwhile, companies invested in China and Taiwan soared, eyeing a unified market of over 1.4 billion people. The alliance promised to streamline supply chains, creating a dominant manufacturing and tech hub. Firms reconsidered plans to move production out of China. The new bloc was too efficient to ignore. Commodity prices surged, anticipating higher demand from the integrated zone. The US dollar weakened, while the yuan, now backed by Taiwan's tech, looked stronger than ever. Tech stocks in the new bloc, especially TSMC and Chinese giants, skyrocketed. The alliance threatened to end US efforts to restrict China's access to advanced chips. With Taiwan's help, China could become self-sufficient in semiconductors, upending the global tech landscape. The era of American tech dominance faced its greatest challenge. A new tech superpower had emerged, and the world was unprepared. Investors, governments, and corporations all scrambled to adapt. The economic center of gravity was shifting, fast. The alliance was not just a political event, it was a financial revolution. The world's markets would never be the same. The US was shocked, blindsided by the new alliance, years of strategy now meaningless. Japan was alarmed, seeing both peace and a new threat, and quickly moved to boost defense. The EU was divided, torn between economic opportunity and security fears. Russia welcomed the news, eager to see US influence wane. The China-Taiwan bloc was now a central player, and the world was watching a new era begin. The China-Taiwan alliance instantly created the world's most formidable consumer and technology market. With 1.4 billion consumers and Taiwan's tech prowess, the bloc became an economic juggernaut. Global corporations now had to win in this new, integrated market, or risk irrelevance. The alliance gained leverage to set global trade standards and business practices. Internal trade would be prioritized, reducing reliance on Western imports. Taiwan's chip expertise meant China no longer needed US or South Korean semiconductors, impacting those economies. The bloc could dictate terms to trading partners, from data privacy to labor standards. Western consumer brands faced new competition from rising Chinese and Taiwanese C brands and T brands. The cultural pillar doubled as an economic strategy, boosting domestic brands and collaboration. The alliance accelerated the move away from the US dollar in trade, pushing the yuan as a global currency. More countries would accept the yuan, weakening America's financial leverage. The new economic center of gravity in Asia was challenging the foundations of the post-yuan order. The world's trade map had been redrawn overnight. The alliance's cultural bridge was ambitious. Joint universities, media, and exchanges aimed to erase decades of division. Leaders believed integration required a shared identity, not just economic ties, but skepticism ran deep, especially in Taiwan's younger generation. Many had grown up with democracy and a distinct identity, wary of China's authoritarian system. Protests erupted in Taipei, led by students fearing for their freedoms. The challenge was immense, reconciling legal systems, censorship, and free speech. The one country, two systems promise was met with distrust, given Hong Kong's experience. Many feared cultural exchange was a soft power tool for absorption. Taipei's government worked to reassure citizens their way of life would be protected. Yet shared language and family ties offered hope for gradual integration. Business leaders saw opportunity, but the public's trust was crucial. The alliance's future depended on winning hearts and minds. Success or failure would hinge on the next generation's acceptance. The alliance faced daunting practical challenges. Merging two legal systems, Taiwan's democracy and China's party rule, posed fundamental questions. Small Taiwanese businesses feared being outcompeted by mainland giants. Brain drain was a risk, as top talent worried about losing freedoms and considered emigration. The government had to convince its best minds that the alliance would enhance, not erode, their future. Economic integration created new vulnerabilities. Any downturn in China would hit Taiwan hard. The world traded military risk for economic concentration, creating a new kind of fragility. Domestic opposition in Taiwan remained strong. Any misstep could spark crisis. In China, hardliners saw the alliance as a compromise, not a victory. Leaders on both sides had to balance internal politics while building a shared future. The arrangement was stable, but brittle. The alliance's success depended on careful management and constant reassurance. The path forward was uncertain and the stakes were enormous. The China-Taiwan alliance marked the end of the post-Cold War era. The unipolar world, dominated by the US, was over. A multipolar era had begun. Power was now shared among the US, the China-Taiwan bloc, the EU, and Russia. New alliances would form, with the US strengthening ties with Japan, Australia, and India to counterbalance Asia's new giant. Competing spheres of influence emerged, one around the China-Taiwan axis, another around the US and its allies. Global governance was thrown into question. Old institutions faced demands for reform or replacement. The alliance could lead to fragmentation, with different rules for different regions. The partnership was a bold gamble, potentially ushering in peace and prosperity, or new rivalries. The world of November 26, 2025, was fundamentally changed. The alliance was not an endpoint, but the start of a profound transformation. The final outcome depended on how global powers responded. The future was uncertain, but the old order was gone. A new chapter in world history had begun.